Hello world, my name is Matt Spa, and a couple of weeks ago I made a video for my channel. There was a lighting breakdown, and there was enough about this that was different from the other one that I felt like this would be a good candidate for another one of those breakdowns. So it's similar in that it's just, you know, an individual talking to camera, but I think there's some interesting stuff here to point out. So let's just get started. I think a good rule of thumb for video production is that you want to create depth in your scene. And in the previous video, I created depth by sliding the cameras off to the side so that they were shooting into the corner of the room. So the room just naturally created that depth. The way I've done it here is through focal length on my A camera lens and distances. The wall back there is 14 feet wide. I am 0, and this is 0 in terms of angle for the sake of discussion. I'm 8 feet off of that wall, but I'm only 4 feet to the camera. And the focal length on the camera lens is 28 millimeters, which is not common for me. I normally will shoot that camera at 50 millimeters because it's a very natural look. 28 millimeters does some cool things. It allows me to cram all this extra stuff into the scene, but it also takes that background and it pushes it further away. We talk about shallow focal lengths or shorter focal lengths create distortion, and that's what it does. The upside, you get all the stuff in. The downside, as things get closer to the edge of the frame, look how long my arms look. And as they get closer to the camera, look how big my hands are, things get really weirdly distorted. So there's a trade-off in doing this in terms of things don't look as natural, but the gains are I can take this flat scene and give it a little bit more depth by pushing that background further away and pulling myself off of it. If I change the lens to a 50 millimeter, you get this. And it's not a bad shot. Graphically, it's kind of cool. Nothing else has changed except 50 millimeters on the lens, but I've had to move the camera back about another 2.5 feet in order to get my shoulders, myself to kind of occupy the same space in the frame. Like I say, it's not a bad shot, but I've lost those sidewalls. I've lost anything that was kind of creating depth, and I've brought the background a lot closer. If I take it even further and go to 75 millimeters, this is what you get. The camera is now 9 feet away, a little over 9 feet actually, and that picture frame looks like it's right on top of me. I mean, it's huge compared to the 28 millimeter, and we've lost the depth. There's a sweet spot on all of this, and this was a hard thing for me to figure out, to show up on site somewhere, especially a location where I'd never been before, and try to scout a spot to shoot an interview where I had enough room to get the camera as far away as I wanted, because I don't want my cameras right on top of people and being intrusive, but also to be able to separate them off the background and give some depth. It's kind of why I settled on that 50 millimeter as like my starting place. But if you have a zoom lens, it is totally worth the time that it would take to figure out where your shoulders fall in the frame, try that thing at all the different focal lengths that you can, and see how far away you have to move it. You start to get all that stuff in your head and the math starts working, and it's a beautiful thing. The B camera for this is the 85 millimeter, which I love the 85 millimeter. I can't get away from it. Obviously it's on a slider because that's what I had set up for the other video that I was shooting. Not really gonna talk about that. That's kind of out of the scope of this, but if you wanna know more about my thoughts on how to set up sliders and where to put them, comment below and I will put something in about that. That B camera is a little over 7 feet away. So we've got a bit of a difference between the distances on there and then obviously how it looks here. As I talked about in the last video, we have this line, this imaginary line between the subject and the A camera. The main light or the key light goes on one side of that line. All your cameras go on the other side of that line. I don't break that rule. You can try to break that rule if you want and you might have some success, but I don't. I'm gonna turn all the lights off and just bring those on one at a time. My key light is a 150 watt bicolor Nanlite, all this stuff's Nanlite. It's a Nanlite Forza 150. It is 4 feet away from me this way, and the stand is 4 feet forward. So that stand is literally at 45 degrees from me. The modifier is a 51-inch umbrella with a white interior and a diffusion sock kind of thing over the front of it. The diffusion is actually parallel to the edge of the desk. So it's perpendicular to this line here. And the reason that's so is that I want to minimize kind of the spill. The downside of using umbrellas and diffusion like that is that you get a lot of spill. You don't have a lot of directional control over the light. So you can see I'm getting a little bit back there, but the majority of it is falling on me. The upside is your light fixture, the actual fixture, is sitting almost directly on top of the light stand, and the umbrella and the modifier are sitting kind of behind that. So your weight is really evenly distributed. You can get away with a lighter duty light stand, which is easier to tote, and it's a bounced source. So my light is actually bouncing off the inside of that umbrella and then coming through the diffusion. It is similar to a book light, which is a beautiful light, but is really hard to set up. The only other thing that's kind of lighting me is a 33-inch reflector that's right here. If I slide that out of the way, you can see how much darker that side of my face gets. And then I can bring that back in and hopefully not block off my second angle. There we go. So this is just filling in some shadows on this side. Really, if I was gonna be super duper picky, I would say that this is a little bit dark. This eye socket is just going a smidge dark. I wonder if I could, there, that's way better. All right, let's look at the background. Oh, color of light and intensity. This light's at 40% output. I'm at ISO 800 on both cameras and f2.8. So you can kind of do some math there. The color temperature on that light is 5600K, and that's what my cameras are set to. So just like in the last video, I'm always trying to get relatively accurate skin tones in camera. I can mess with them later, but that's what I want. In this case, I want my background to go a little bit warmer, so I'll talk about the color temperatures of all the rest of these lights. The next one that we're going to bring on is the fill light. This is at 10% and it's at 5000K. So it's not like drastically warmer, but it's a little bit warmer. It's another 150 watt fixture and it's bouncing off the ceiling. So it's just giving me some fill back there, but more importantly, it's giving me control over the level of that fill. So I can decide how many stops difference do I want between this highlight on my head and this wall right here, which is kind of my general lighting back there. The next thing we're gonna bring on is the practical. The practical is a little Pavo bulb at 55%, and it's set to 3700K. So we're getting a lot warmer back there in that corner. The next light we're gonna bring on is the kicker. Here's the kicker. The kicker is set to 3% output, because it's pointing basically straight at the camera, and it's at 3200K. The kicker is a 60 watt nan light fixture, and their smaller fixtures have what they call the FM mount. It's like a tiny little Bowens mount. It's cute as can be. They make a lot of accessories for that mount. You can get soft boxes in it. That one has the, I think it's an FL 22 or 11 or something like that. It's FL something. It is a Fresnel lens, which allows you to focus the beam of light, but it also has some barn doors, so you can cut the light. And at first, this seemed a little bit gimmicky to me, but I ended up buying one for both of my 60 watt fixtures, and I use them all the time. And in a situation like this, it makes it just look more like a video light. You know, it's got little barn doors on it. And anyway, they're very cool. The last light in this is also a 60 watt fixture, and it has another accessory you can get for the FM mount. It is the projection mount, which allows you to put a gobo in there. It's a little piece of metal, shines light through it, it's got a lens, and it does this. So what I've got back there is just a gobo that looks like Venetian blinds, and I push that through to the wall back there. It's at an angle. So I've taken that flat wall and I've given myself just a little bit of angle as if there were light coming through a window over here that had Venetian blinds on it. It also allows me to warm things up a little bit. What is the, how warm is that light? I think that one's also at 3700K. So the same as the practical back there. And it's only at 6% output. I mean, it's not doing much, but it's doing something. I mean, look at that. And that. There's just a little bit, I mean, there's a lot going on back there. I will give you that. There's no shortage of things going on. But anyway, I think it looks cool, and I've got it. One last thing to mention on the kicker, if you notice, the reflection of the kicker is falling directly behind my glass of water. It is water. Even though I've been accused of drinking moonshine on my channel, I don't do that. Anytime you can run light through a glass or water or something like that, it just creates a little bit more visual interest. That's all the lighting. Distances, I think I covered everything. Yeah, the fill light back here is directly in between me and the back wall, so it's 4 feet off. The practical is about 2 feet in from each of the walls back there, and the kicker is pushed all the way against that wall, and it's about 3 feet in. So I don't really feel like I went quite as granular on this one as I did the last one, but hopefully there's some little tips and tricks and hints and help that will, you know, encourage you to actually go out and do this. The point of these is to, you know, help people build confidence, to give you, like, here's some concrete stuff that you can just go try this and see if it works. And chances are, at least if you're like me, it's not gonna work the first time because you're gonna do something wrong, and then you're gonna figure out what you did wrong, and then when you go somewhere and people are paying you to do it, like real money, you won't do it wrong, hopefully. Or if you do, you'll know how to solve what you did wrong. And that's gonna wrap this up, and if you want more, I'm happy to produce more of these. And until then, thanks for watching.